Okay, everyone, so if you could get your seats, please, so we can get rolling. We've got a little bit to get through tonight. Come on through. Fabulous. Don't know about you, but I haven't got used to this hour yet, have you? So waking up at the crack of dawn still. So I'd just like to welcome anyone if they're on here waiting for us to start our presentation. So if you're at home watching, welcome. We will be going through the natural history prints tonight. So we've got projected images, sorry, not prints, projected images tonight. Well, I'm not sure who the judge was for these. Yeah, well, we'll get introduced for that. So, are we all here? Are we all ready to roll? Is there anybody? You're not here? Well, you're not going to be here, are you? We're saying goodbye to you, Chris. Yes, Chris is going back to the UK for quite a few months, I understand. Quite a few months you'll be going home? 6 months. So we wish you well and stay nice and warm. Hopefully you have a nice warm summer for you. Yeah. And lots of cathedrals to take. Doing a few back bends, right? So just a quickie. Is there anybody here who is interested in slides? We would like somebody who has a real interest in slides to actually go through our archives. We've got several boxes of slides that we don't need to keep, but there might be one or two gems in there that might be worth keeping. So the project is to assess them, look at them, and keep the ones and put them, digitalize them. Yes. Don't know. Georgie hasn't. Oh, okay. So we're going to have to sort of start from scratch on that one, from what I understand. No, there I missed all sorts. There's natural history here, and there's other bits and bobs elsewhere. What the library have is a projector which you can actually see them. So if there were a group of you who could do maybe a few, you don't have to do the whole lot, but do them in little increments, that would be really cool. Otherwise, if no one's interested in doing them, there's not much point in us sort of storing them and keeping them. So, no, I'm afraid we don't. No. A few boxes. 1,500. So you're just going to go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And you have that choice. You have that power to choose the ones you like. So we're gifting you that power. Yeah? Okay. John's got a viewer. And you have two. So there's two viewers. That's okay. It doesn't have to be immediate. It's just like, let's have a think about it between now and then. Let's talk about it again and see if that other people might come on board. So that's just something to bear in mind. Also, Ian, if you're listening, you've got 8,000 slides. You can come and join in the fun too. Yeah. Okay. So we might put a little notice on Facebook or something and see what interest there is. Are you interested? No. Do you want to? One of those maybe. Okay, so we're going to move on. Thank you to Dennis for the presentation earlier. That was good fun. We're going to go straight in with Nicola doing the reading for today, and also going to talk about the judge for this evening as well. So any other matters that you'd like to bring? going to do her very best at the Latin names. So she says she's worried about the Latin names tonight.
I am.
Yeah, but we're not going to hold you accountable because none of us know them either. But if you do, please feel free to correct. All right, let's carry on with this presentation. Thank you.
If you want to. If you want to. Grab a microphone. Oh, there you go. First of all, the judge for tonight is Jeff Beals. It was interesting watching his process of judging the images this round. So what he does is he goes through the images and he judges them to his criteria. And then we give him our judging criteria, basically saying, please don't award everybody with an acceptance or higher. But in his opinion, he actually did feel that a lot of our images were very, very worthy. He was very impressed with what we did present and how well we presented our images. A little bit about Jeff. He also works in Tiritiri Mātangi as a guide, so he does a lot of work there. And he's got a BCom in the University of Auckland as well, from what I could figure out. I didn't get, so that's a little bit about Jeff and some of his processes. He was a bit late in getting it through, but I'm really happy with what he's done, and some of the critiques are very in-depth, which I hope adds some value for you. So without further ado, I'll use my expert here to do the names while I do the rest.
Amanita muscaria.
Yes. This Amanita muscaria has been exposed sharply with a good depth of field, which shows the cap crisply from the front and almost to the back. The light source to the left has been a little strong, resulting in a strong specular highlights on the cap. A slightly softer degree of lighting might have allowed a better light balance. The colours are rich and the stem is exposed nicely. A viewing angle which showed something of the gills would have improved the natural history quality of the image. These fungi grow well under conifers, and it's nice to see evidence of that with the pine cone in the picture. Oh, aren't you going to do the other one? No. Pied shag. These preening pied shags have been captured sharply. There is a good detail in the whites, but the darks are a little underexposed. With the heads turned down and away from us, it's difficult to see anything of their facial features. The composition with two birds at opposite sides of the frame leaves an uncomfortable gap in the middle. Focusing on one bird with a brighter exposure would probably have delivered a better result. Please keep pursuing improving your images of these birds, as there is a lot of pleasure to be had from being out there and photographing them. White-fronted tern attacking red-billed gull for nesting material. This is an excellent behavioural study, and I'm enjoying the relationship of the birds to each other and their spread of their wings. The image is unfortunately not sharp enough and bordering on overexposed in the white areas. It's very difficult to capture light in the eye of terns and very much depends upon the angle of the light. Unfortunately, in this instance, you weren't successful. It's still a very interesting nature study. Are you doing that one?
I've lost the name.
There we go. Coming back.
Croisocephalus novale hollandae scopulinus.
Yes. Go, Ellen. You have successfully captured this image of a red-billed gull in an idyllic beach setting. It's a scene many of us commonly see, making it easy to fail to appreciate well enough. These birds are actually in decline and naturally vulnerable with breeding pair numbers below 28,000. The size of the bird in the frame makes it difficult to see too much detail. You have, however, done a good job capturing the sharp image of this bird in flight. Striated?
Yeah, striated.
Striated heron, Borneo. A striated heron has been very nicely composed in the frame. It would be nice to know the colours of this bird, and I feel that the monochrome presentation has missed an opportunity to help us better identify this bird should we see it in the wild. It seems quite possible to me that the dark, smudgy tones in the light areas of the breast have been toned down because of overexposure, and they feel quite unnatural. I do enjoy the silhouetting of the mosses hanging from the branch. A male cheetah, something marking his territory.
Yeah, that'll do.
Okay. You are very fortunate to have been able to capture this image. It's a lovely study of this cat, and in one respect, I'm pleased that you included the tip of its tail as it completes the picture. The downside of this decision is that we are seeing the signage on the stone plinth. A possible solution which you could consider is to crop above the signage, leaving the tail out but implied. The exposure, it's quite contrasty because you are shooting into the light. You have exposed for the highlights, but this has compromised the detail in the shadows, and the eyes in particular are somewhat subdued. You could consider opening the shadows and pulling the highlights back to compensate. This would improve the shadow detail, but likely subdue the colours. This could be overcome with an increase in vibrance and saturation to bring back the natural colours. Depth of field has been well handled. Hang on. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Has been well handled. Hang on, goes down a bit, just bear with me. Here with the cat fully sharp and a nice diffused background. Yeah, I got stuck doing this the other day. Yep, woohoo, did it. Monarch butterfly. I like that you have isolated the monarch and the flower from the background. The separation has been well achieved. The exposure has been very successful for the whites of the flower, but unfortunately the exposure on the monarch is not bright enough. Opening up the shadows would be a good strategy for overcoming this issue. Since there is nothing of importance in the background, I think you could successfully crop in a little tighter to make the monarch bigger in the frame. The depth of field is perfect, with the monarch and all parts of the flower nicely in focus.
Nisocoletes. Oh, hang on.
I'm coming back.
Nisocoletes leoproptis fulvescens. Naro huru.
Thank you, Alan. Contrasting tones of
It's a
this
native
golden
bee.
bee against the purple flower has made for a nice image. The bee's head was not quite achieved critical sharpness, and the subject flower is even less sharp. I also think a crop on the bright area at the bottom, assisted by a compensatory crop at the top, would improve the focus in this image. The composition is nicely made, and I'm enjoying the diffusion in the background against the sharper main subjects. Australasian gannet, Takapū and chick. I like the attentive behaviour of this parent towards its chick. The image appears to be a little too saturated in the head colour, and the blacks are too dense. Perhaps a reduction in contrast in this image might resolve the issue. I think the composition is a little too tight, and pulling the framing back a little to include more of the parent's head and foot could have improved the composition. I like that the whites of the feathers show good texture. A growling grass frog, Rhinodia reniformis.
Probably Rhinoidea, but it's
Probably a Rhinoidea. I'll get it right one day. The growling grass frog, otherwise known as the southern bell frog, is native to Australia and was, interestingly, introduced to New Zealand by the Canterbury Acclimatisation Society in 1867. Interesting fact. The frog in this image is quite identifiable, and you've captured it in an interesting pose. Unfortunately, the surrounds are quite distracting with all of the spiky leaves, and a closer crop would probably help with making the frog larger in the frame, as well as removing much of the distraction. The depth of field has just missed the eyes and is falling off towards the back of the body, and so while the eyes have lovely catch lights, they're not quite sharp. The exposure is lovely though, with great detail in the frog and no losses in the shadows and highlights. The grace and beauty of a kotuku landing in flight is inspiring. I love the trail of water draining from its feet and the ripples around its lift-off point. Unfortunately, the back of the left wing is showing no texture, despite the lighting being favourable. I would very much like to have seen more negative space in the water below the bird, and this composition feels too compressed towards the bottom. The dark band of shoreline at the top provides a top heaviness of tonal weight, which unbalances the image. You've done a great job of capturing this bird at this point, at the point of liftoff, with its wing this beautiful spread, spread. Acceptance, pied shag, kahuri resting. This is a very crisp capture of the pied shag. It's a good portrait study which is missing a catch light in the eye. The background is quite busy and the image would benefit from cropping the top 15 to 20% and left 15% to get rid of the outer focus bright stick. The feather detail in the bright areas is very nice, and this is a strong identifying image. Bornean orangutans. This one I wasn't going to attempt. Do you want to? Good. This is a very touching mother and child study, and I like that the young orangutan is looking straight at the camera. I like that you have kept the composition tight. There are exposure issues with the blacks being too grey. You have also endeavoured to pull the highlights back in the bright areas above the mother's head, and this has caused some grey artefacts. Smooth human-made structure in the bottom left corner is also a little distracting, and a crop on the left to just before the orangutan's hand would address this nicely. The image definitely has some cute factor, and I'm sure he would have been pleased to capture this. Seagull in flight. You've done it well to capture a nice steady image of this red-billed gull in flight. The depth of field has been well handled, with the bird fully sharp and a nice diffused background. There is an issue with the exposure which I feel is too contrasty, resulting in the blacks losing detail and the whites heading towards overexposure. A small curves adjustment to pull back towards the middle will remedy this nicely. The composition in the frame is pleasing. Parrot ant.
Nylanderia.
You have done a very good job of capturing this ant so sharp with good depth of field. While I admire the closeness and sharpness of the image, I feel that, from a natural history point of view, pulling a little further away to provide a little more environmental context would have been helpful. The magenta colouring and brightness of the bottom right corner is a strong visual distraction. Showing the ant so large in the frame has, however, provided us with a good look at this species in detail. A crested tern, Thalasseus burgii.
Something like that.
I'm out of here. I'm pleased to see this crested tern, and I hadn't realised this species is occasionally seen in New Zealand, which makes me wonder if you took it here. Thank you for showing me this. Your titling is accurate, but the PSNZ rules disallow additions like I'm out of here. I wonder whether a tighter crop might have been better for showing us more of the detail of the bird without losing the beach context. You captured the bird sharply, just at the point of liftoff, and I like the tasty treat in his bill. Prunus tomentosa next to the Great Wall of China. This beautiful image of cherry blossom would most likely be a cultivated plant in New Zealand and would therefore not be accepted as a natural history image. But in the context next to the Great Wall of China, it's in its natural environment, so makes a very good natural history subject. I like that you have come in closely and have a good number of flowers, including those close up, in sharp focus. I also like that we can see other trees and flower on the hillsides in the background, along with the Great Wall on the ridge. It's unfortunate that some of the near background whites have become hard-edged, probably as a result of pulling down the highlights a little too far. I did enjoy this image though, for its unusualness, and I thank you for showing us this. Decaying clam fossil, Namberley. The exposure of this image is perfect. The side lighting has beautifully texturized the rock, making it easy to see the fossils bound within it. I like that we are seeing the front and back of whole shells as well as cross sections. This is a very suitable natural history study, but from a technical point of view, it is lacking scale. The strongest element is the large white clamshell at the bottom, and while it has been placed on a third, the image feels weighted towards the bottom. I do, however, like the dynamics of the diagonal line of the white shells. Hedge sparrow, Prunella modularis. This male sparrow has been beautifully captured against a subtle, diffused background. It is critically sharp throughout, with a lovely catchlight in the eye, and I'm very much enjoying that it has nesting material in its beak. This makes for a stronger natural history image than a bird study on its own. The diagonal slash of brightness in the background bottom right corner is a strong element that draws the eye and could be suitably toned down to diminish its impact without affecting the nature story. It is possible that alternatively you might crop in from the right to achieve a reduction in emphasis of this element, and this could be done without upsetting the compositional balance. Paradise shelduck, Tadorna variegata. I like that you have captured this paradise duck in what appears to be a riverbed, which is a much nicer environment than a farmer's field where we often see them. The bird, which is called putatangitangi in the north, but I've heard it called putakataki in the south, is a female, which we can tell from the white head. This is additional identification which could easily have been found and added into the title. And I encourage you to identify the sex where you can. The feather detail on these birds is beautiful, and we see it all clearly here. Although the details in the whites is not quite so obvious, the eye is crisply sharp with a wonderful catchlight. Compositionally, the placement in the frame is a little far to the right, but I like the bank rock to the left. Ideally, you'd have captured a little more of the scene on the right. Well done for getting out in the wild to capture this. Cape vulture, viewing the scene. It's really interesting to see a species we never see in New Zealand, and I appreciate having a close look at this vulture. It's been nicely composed in late but strong light, which has increased the contrast in the image and overexposed the back of the head and neck while producing deep tones in the breast shadows. The sky appears to have been toned down with unnatural darker shades of blue, appearing around the wing feathers and the end of the branch. This is jarring to my eye. The depth of field has been well handled and the bird is sharp throughout. Bellbird, Karamako Anthornis melanura. Bellbirds, or Karamako, are one of our 3 nectar-feeding species, and it's lovely to see this bird heavily engrossed in feeding on yellow harakeke. The bright red eye and flower are both beautifully sharp, and this is a strong point of the image. The outer focus flex stem protruding from the back of the bird's head is somewhat distracting, but I accept that a better angle was probably not possible. Please be careful when sharpening your images, as I feel that the feather detail is a little smudgy as a result of trying to sharpen it a little too far. It's hard to capture these moments in nature, and I do congratulate the author. Kokako peer bonding. As a member of the Kokako monitoring team on Matangi Island, I find myself looking at this image and wanting to see the bird's leg bands. Indeed, I wonder if this was taken on the island. This image of Kokako courtship feeding has lovely emotion for me, and I like the catch lights in the eyes. Unfortunately, the bright circular patches of bokeh in the background are somewhat distracting, and the grey feathering to the left of the eye on the bird on the left looks somewhat unnatural. The beautiful curved shapes of the arcs of the 2 birds' heads and the necks make a very pleasing composition, and I love the string of saliva connecting the 2. Red-bill gull and chicks. This is an excellent story of camouflage, as we see how well the red-bill gull chicks blend into the nest landscape. The lighting is unfortunately a little flat, which makes it difficult to see texturing in the feathers of the birds, even though they are sharp. The composition here is just great, and the depth of field has been well judged. Red-billed gull with juvenile. Red-billed gull is a great study showing both the adult and the juvenile forms of this gull. The monochromatic tones of the backgrounds in this image complement the birds very nicely and help the red bill and the feet of the adult stand out very well. The depth of field has been very well handled with excellent sharpness on both birds, hand enough diffusion in the background for good separation. I think it's and enough. Okay, got it. The exposure is just right in the shadows, and the highlights could do with lifting a little in the mid-tones. This is an excellent natural history study of the adult and juvenile forms. Score 4, New Zealand dotterel. Another portrait here with really great detail throughout the bird and a great catchlight in the eye, which is hard to achieve with these birds unless you're in very specific light. You can clearly see the fine feather detail, and the bird is easily identifiable. The bright spots in the outer focus background are a little distracting, particularly the 2 spots on the top right corner closest to the head. The white shell on the right border is also eye-catching, although it does have tone and it is not overexposed. Overall, a great result at this level. Kotuku, white heron. You have put yourself in an excellent position and circumstance to capture these birds in breeding plumage and to the nest, and I think you have succeeded very well in that respect. These birds are bright white, and the background you are dealing with is very busy and distracting. This has led to pulling the exposure down to display the bird's white feathering at its best. The result has been unnatural underexposure for everything else. I would like to see you to try to find a more natural look for the image, and I know it's tricky balance. I suggest using less contrast, a slightly higher exposure, and opening up the shadows a little. I do very much like this image and the composition you have chosen for the birds. I think a really strong image lies just below the surface. Portrait of a tui. This is a lovely head and shoulder study of the tui. The exposure is excellent and the soft lighting has allowed us to see the many and varied colours that its iridescent feathers display in the right light. The head is nicely sharp with a lovely catchlight in the eye, and more importantly, the poi feathers are not burnt out and show lovely detail throughout. You've managed to lower the highlights in the bokeh background and that has fortunately diminished its distraction. This is a lovely detailed portrait, which I enjoyed very much. Black shag. Bellbirds, or koromiko, are one of our 3 nectar-feeding species, and it's lovely to see this bird heavily engrossed in feeding on yellow. Nope. Nope. Lost that one. Sorry, guys, but we just get to appreciate him for what he is. It's a cutie. New Zealand fur seal. The seal in this image looks surprised to me, and perhaps you startled him or her in some way. Much of the apparent softness of the image is attributable to the layer of water over its fur, but the eyes, ears, and mouth are nicely sharp. I think the space above the animal's head is more than what we need, and the image could stand some cropping there. You've captured a very nice image of this New Zealand fur seal, which you've composed particularly nicely. Score 5. Odd-leaved orchid at Arthur's Pass. This orchid almost seems to pop off the page, and the exposure and depth of field has been beautifully handled, showing good detail throughout the stem and petals, front to back. It makes me inclined to ask, was this shot at distance with a long lens or up close with the post-process stacking? Either way, you've done an excellent job here. Elephants at sunset. Score 5. When I look at this image, I can feel the heat rising from the land. The dynamic line made by this herd is very pleasing, and the monochromatic yellowness of the landscape helps reinforce a sense of sunset and heat. The haziness in the image diminishes the blacks, and it's possible that increasing the blacks might actually improve the tonal range. I suggest you try this, but it may potentially diminish the mood. The dust rising from the animal's feet and coloured by the low glancing light adds an excellent atmosphere. Australasian gannet takapo head study. This is a beautiful portrait of a takapo Australasian gannet preening. The depth of field is perfect, with all the near ground feathers perfectly sharp and all of its head and beak. I do think that the exposure is a little undercooked, and I think if you applied a levels adjustment to pull the white slider back to meet the edge of the histogram, you will get proper whites in the image without overexposure and improve its appearance significantly. I love the composition you have chosen here, and the placement of the eye is perfect. And best in show, bee on flax. I've seen many photos of bees gathering nectar. This image ranks up there with some of the best I've seen. It's difficult to achieve this degree of excellence, with the depth of field showing the entire flower and the bee perfectly sharply, yet with the bee's wings in blurred motion, and the background so beautifully soft. I would be very proud to have taken this image myself. Congratulations.
Thank you, Nicola. That's really well read. We're going to get the certificates handed out now by Nicola and Ian. Thank you.
John, oh, hang on, I've got them, whoopsie. Just one moment. Maybe if I go this way. Yeah, okay, I think it's that way. Got it? Yep. Robert Johansson, Pied Jag. They're not in the order, there he is. Joe Curtis. And our surprise. Karen McConkey. I don't think she's here either. Oh, Alistair. Congratulations. I know. This is Jane. Les Arman. Alison Emery. John McCall. Don't think that was in New Zealand then. Nerily. Carolyn. And John Thornton. Oh, sorry. He doesn't love us either, does she? David Rice. Rach. Doesn't love us either. Bonnie. I don't think she's here either. Lucy. One.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. Okay, honours. Shirley Wilson. Dawn. That's a beautiful image. JK. And best in show is Trish Brown. Okay. I did have some issues printing some of these certificates, so if you would like your certificate reprinted, please let me know. I can get that done for you. That's
So maybe we'll have the people who
oh yeah,
are
that
here
would
to have a chat.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
So perhaps Dawn, you could talk about your LV elephants.
So we were in Etosha National Park, and there were 4 of us. 3 of them went to have dinner at the air. They thought they were hungry, and I decided to stay for the sunset at the waterhole. and that's what I was rewarded with. And I just had my long lens, and the elephants came right up to the fence in front and around the front of the waterhole, and all I could get was some trunks and legs and babies with the sun behind them. But yeah.
Shirley.
This is me still learning with how to do macro. So yes, it was a focus stack of about 40 with a macro lens. These are these tiny little orchids that are about the size of your little fingernail, about 6 inches from the ground. So there was a lot of mud involved and and groveling around, but it was a wonderful year for orchids this year up at Arthur's Pass, and I think that people don't see them enough to know how beautiful they are.
We have narrowly, because we haven't got many people here who... Oh, JK. Sorry, I'll go for JK next. JK?
Yeah. Anybody who has been to Merriwell Gannet Colony will believe that we agree that the place is full of activities. You know, it's almost overwhelmed with the activities and it's quite difficult to zoom into what you want to take. And I saw this Gannet priming, and I want to capture the feather detail and the action and the head detail of the and they're actually quite close by, so you don't really need to zoom in too much. Yeah, and the lighting was good, but it was very windy at that time.
That doesn't matter because we haven't got anybody else. Anybody else? Nicola, or your seals, Nicola. Would you like to talk to those? Okay. She's got a mic on, have you? Oh, she's taken it off. Okay. Here we and got one next to you.
Now it's going. Haha. She was, I think she's a she. The reason why I think she's a she is because I was originally taking some photos of some fur seal pups, and I was on my kayak, and that is actually really not a happy face. She just came from nowhere, and she was really, really growling me, and it was like, gave me enough of a fright to get the hell out of there as fast as I could. And I didn't mean to invade her space, but I was quite a way out. But yeah, no, she didn't like me at all.
Okay. All right then. Okay, thank you. Wonderful to see all those beautiful images. So anything else for this evening? Well, we've got nothing else. Just, I have, yes, done already. Yes. I don't know about those, sorry. So, Dawn, you've just done some spectacular work. Apologies for, thank you.
So the Turua Museum in Dunedin have a competition every year for the last 32 or something years. And this year they opened it up to out of Dunedin people for one section. And so it didn't cost to enter, and you could put 10 images in. And so I won the section, and I got runner-up overall out of 10,000 images, so I was pretty pleased with that. Plus, I got money.
A lovely result. Yes, Dennis.
Anybody here who went? Right. Now, this annual event, Open Christchurch, not sure you're aware of that, where public buildings and private buildings is opened for the first weekend in May. And some are free, some you have to book. And it's a great opportunity to continue to explore their idea of curves and lines and spaces, etc., as well as perhaps looking at architecture and sort of contribute to the SIG of stamps. So have a go, have a look. They're as available online with all the properties. So, yeah.
I had that show up last week in my inbox, and I keep an eye out for it. A lot of the really, really cool, unique buildings have already been booked out. But the bigger thing of this is it's a fantastic opportunity to actually go into the new stadium and go and stick your camera around. And I'm sure you'll find some really cool angles in there, because just visualizing from some of the online digital stuff that they've done to show you where your seats are, it looks very impressive what you could possibly get out of it. But there's lots of other opportunities too in there as well, some other public buildings that you don't normally get to see in. But have a look at it. It's all online, and if you get the Newsline letter from the council, or look up Newsline, you can subscribe to it, and the council sends you things that are on. And this is one of the things that always shows up once a year. It's worthwhile trying to trap yourself into something if you catch it quick enough.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So yes, John. I've said John. Oh, okay, thank you. So we are now going to close. So safe drive home. If you could throw the chairs at the back, that would be great. And see you all next week. Thank you.